People always ask me if I believe in ghosts. I never used to. You couldn't pay me to believe in that crap when I was younger. Hell, I moved into my first apartment in 1996, a rundown little unit in a historic building off Government Street here in Baton Rouge. I was 24, freshly graduated, trying to get into freelance writing, dead broke. The building used to be a boarding house back in the 1800s, supposedly Civil War era. But I didn't care. It was cheap, and the landlord didn't ask too many questions. Now, I don't usually talk about what happened that summer. I don't even like thinking about it. But I'll tell you, since you asked. Just don't expect me to sleep tonight. It was August, thick, muggy heat that clung to your skin like syrup. My apartment was on the second floor, corner unit. The floors sloped a bit, and the whole place smelled faintly of mildew and dust baked into the walls. Still, I was excited, independent, free. I remember the first night I moved in, I was blasting Pantera on my little tabletop radio. This Love was playing, I think. I was unpacking boxes, swigging warm beer, feeling like a king. Then came the knock, almost like the back of a finger brushing the wood. Tap, tap, tap. I paused the music, thinking maybe it was a neighbor, but when I opened the door, nobody was there. Just the empty, dim hallway and the stale smell of old wood and paint. Didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe a prank. Maybe I'd imagined it. But then it happened again and again. Always around 2 or 3 a.m. when the building was dead quiet and I was up writing or listening to metal with the volume low. Just that soft, barely there knock. And it wasn't just the knocking. I started seeing her. It always started the same way. I'd catch her out of the corner of my eye. A silhouette through the wavy glass window on the stairwell, or a shape reflected in the hallway mirror at the end of the corridor. She was always watching. I only ever got a good look at her once. I was coming home late from Louis' Cafe, arms full of groceries. It had just rained, and the stairwell was slick. As I stepped onto the second floor landing, I saw her standing at the end of the hallway, half in shadow, right in front of my door. She was horrible. Gaunt, with yellowish skin stretched tight over sharp bones. Her hair was long and matted, gray and stringy, hanging in clumps. She wore what looked like an old nightgown, torn and stained at the hem, and her eyes, milky white, like boiled fish eyes, were locked right on me. She didn't move, didn't blink. I dropped the groceries. When I looked up again, she was gone. I started sleeping with the lights on, music playing all night. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps creaking in the hallway, or what sounded like whispering through the vents. Once, I swear to God, I heard my name being said, just barely, like breath across my ear. I asked the neighbor downstairs, an old man named Joe, if he'd ever seen anything weird. He just shook his head and said, "That building got history, man. But I don't meddle with that side of things." It came to a head one night in September. I'd fallen asleep on the couch with Type O Negative playing on the stereo. Love You to Death, I think it was. I woke up to that sound again. Tap, tap, tap. Only this time, it wasn't at the door. It was inside. I sat bolt upright. The lights flickered. My stereo cut out. Then I saw her. She was standing in the middle of my goddamn living room, closer than ever. Her jaw slack, her mouth hanging open like she was screaming, but no sound came out. Her fingers were all bent wrong, like broken twigs, and they twitched with every flicker of the light. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. She raised one hand, slowly, and pointed toward the ceiling. Then she faded, just vanished, like dust in the wind. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep the next either. A few days later, I finally worked up the nerve to talk to Mr. Harmon, the landlord. I asked him straight up if someone had died in that apartment. He got real quiet, wouldn't meet my eyes. Back in '66, he finally said, old woman named Mabel Thibodeau, lived alone upstairs, same unit as yours, but before the place got remodeled, kept to herself. They found her dead in the bathtub, heart failure, they think, but nobody noticed for days. Place stank to high hell. I asked him why he didn't tell me. He just shrugged. Didn't think it mattered. You don't believe in ghosts, do you? I moved out the next week. Didn't even ask for my deposit back. I left furniture behind. Hell, I left my radio behind. I didn't want anything that had been in that place coming with me. To this day, I can't listen to Pantera or Type O without getting the chills. I can't stand the smell of mildew, and I still check behind me in the mirror sometimes just to be sure. So, yeah, I believe in ghosts now. And if you ever rent a place in an old Louisiana building and you hear knocking late at night, she doesn't like being ignored. You wouldn't expect much trouble in the daylight, least of all in a place built for the dead. It was late September, still hot as sin, and I was pulling weeds along the older part of St. Roch's Cemetery, just outside Houma. The kind of place with Spanish moss hanging low and iron gates that squeal like they're protesting the very idea of being opened. I'd been the caretaker there for 9 years. I kept the grounds tidy, made sure the headstones didn't fall into disrepair, and chased off the occasional drunk teenager thinking they were braver than they were. But I'd never seen what I saw that afternoon. I was bent over near a line of cracked tombs from the 1800s, names half-eaten by time, when a voice said behind me, low and friendly like, "Hot day for September, ain't it?" I turned and saw an older man standing a few yards off, next to the big cypress tree at the edge of the older plots. Thin fella. Wore a white shirt with yellowed sleeves, high-waisted trousers held up with suspenders, and a wide-brimmed straw hat that had seen better days. He looked like something out of an old photo album your grandma keeps locked in a cedar chest, but it wasn't his clothes that gave me pause. It was his stillness. You ever see someone stand so still they don't even blink? He was like that. I wiped the sweat off my brow and said, "Sure is." Storm rolled through last night, but the air is still thick as molasses. He nodded and stepped forward slowly. These storms, they churn things up, make the dead restless sometimes. That gave me a chuckle. "You sound like my Uncle Dale." He used to say the same thing, claimed he saw his dead wife on the porch once after a thunderclap. The man didn't smile, just looked out over the rows of graves, like he was scanning for someone he'd lost. Sometimes the veil thins. You can feel it if you stay still long enough. Now, I'm no stranger to the stories that hang around these parts. Folks around Houma got all kinds of tales about ghosts and gree-grees and things that walk in two worlds, but I'd never seen anything myself, and I figured the man was just the quiet type with a taste for the dramatic. "You come to visit someone?" I asked. He nodded toward a crumbling tomb nearby, one with vines growing around the marbled slab like fingers. The name was almost illegible, but I knew it well. It was Theodore Boudreau, buried in 1912. I only remembered it because someone had tried to steal the metal gate around it a few months back, and I'd had to call the sheriff. "That's my name," the man said, voice steady. I blinked. "Beg your pardon?" He turned to look at me fully then, and the light hit his face in a strange way. His skin looked almost translucent. No color to his cheeks, no shine of sweat despite the heat. His eyes were gray, dull, like river stones left in shadow. "I've been buried here over 100 years," he said, "and I still come up for air now and then." I felt a cold coil twist in my gut. "All right," I said, laughing nervously. "That's a good one." He tilted his head slowly. "You think I'm joking?" I looked at the tomb again. The date was clear enough now, 1869 to 1912. The name matched what he said, and the man standing next to me looked like he belonged in a daguerreotype, not walking around the midday sun. I looked back, and he was closer now, only a few feet from me. He whispered, "Do you hear them too?" I didn't want to answer, but I realized then that I did hear something. A soft rustling, not wind in the trees, something like whispering voices beneath the soil, murmurs threading between marble slabs and rusted gates. "You work here," Theodore said. "You keep their rest clean and quiet. They like that." "Who?" I croaked. He stepped backward toward his tomb. "The ones who haven't fully gone, the ones waiting for their names to be spoken again." And with that, he turned and walked, no, sank into the shadows beside his own grave, like he belonged there, like he was being drawn back into it. I didn't move for a long time, just stood there, sweating and shivering at the same time. I finally convinced myself that the heat had gotten to me, that maybe I'd inhaled some chemical cleaner too long. But as I walked back toward the caretaker's shed, I passed the old mausoleum by the west wall, and something made me stop. Etched into the moss-covered stone was a faint phrase I'd never noticed before. "Speak their names, and they will return." I still take care of that cemetery, still weed around Theodore's tomb. I don't talk to anyone there anymore, not unless I'm sure they're breathing. I don't usually talk about what happened at the Myrtles, not because I'm scared, though God knows I should be, but because most people either laugh or give me that look, the kind where they nod politely but start edging away, like they think you've had one too many or fried your brain in the sun. But sometimes, late at night, when my wife's asleep and the TV's off, and it's just me and the house creaking in the dark, I think about her, Chloe, and I remember the way she smelled, like jasmine and rot, the way she watched us long before we ever saw her. This was back in the summer of 1986. I was 26. My girlfriend at the time, Robin, had this wild idea to road trip through the South. She'd read about the Myrtles plantation in some travel magazine and thought it'd be fun to stay the night. "They say it's haunted," she said with a grin, "but I don't believe in all that ghost story crap." I did, even then, especially then. The place looked like something out of a dream when we pulled up, Spanish moss dripping from the oaks, white columns catching the gold light of the late afternoon. It was beautiful, but there was a stillness to it I didn't like the air didn't move quite right, like the house was holding its breath. We checked in, got shown around by an older black woman who didn't say much. I noticed she didn't go past the front room, just handed us the keys, smiled thinly and said, "Y'all enjoy your stay. But don't go messing with the mirrors." Robin rolled her eyes the second the woman turned her back. The first few hours were normal enough. We drank a couple of beers on the veranda, walked the grounds. Robin took pictures with her Polaroid, and kept asking me to pose next to the fountains and weeping willows. But when the sun went down, the air changed. It got heavy, not hot, oppressive, like someone was pressing down on my shoulders with both hands. We went back inside and started wandering through the house. Robin kept trying doors and snooping around, hoping to scare herself. We ended up in one of the upstairs bedrooms, the one with the massive four-poster bed and lace curtains. There was a full-length mirror on the wall, framed in dark wood, that looked almost black in the lamplight. Robin went up to it and started fluffing her hair. "Do I look like one of those plantation belles?" she joked, fanning herself with a pamphlet. I didn't laugh. I was staring at the mirror, not her reflection next to it. There was something there, a shape, a figure. It was behind her, just barely visible like smoke clinging to the edges of the glass. I opened my mouth to say something, but then it was gone. "Don't look at me like that," Robin said, catching my expression. "You're trying to freak me out." "I saw something," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. "There was someone in the mirror." Robin turned and looked, stepping aside. Nothing there, but I couldn't stop staring. The mirror was wrong. Not like a funhouse mirror, it was clear, but it didn't feel like it was reflecting the room we were in. It felt like it was showing somewhere else, somewhere darker. We stayed in that room overnight. I didn't want to, but Robin insisted. It was the most authentic one, apparently. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of whispering. I thought maybe Robin had left the TV on, but there was no TV in the room. I turned over. She was asleep, snoring lightly. The whispering kept going, not loud, barely audible. I couldn't make out the words, just the intent, desperate, angry. It was coming from the mirror. I got out of bed and walked over, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I stared into it, half expecting my own reflection, but there was no reflection. The room behind me didn't show, the lamp didn't show, just darkness, and then eyes, wide, luminous green eyes. They were staring straight at me from the other side of the glass. And then a woman stepped into view like she'd been waiting. Her skin was pale but smeared with grime. She wore a faded green head wrap, and her face was swollen on one side, like she'd been beaten hard. Her lips were moving, but no sound came out. Then the corner of her mouth twitched up into the faintest, coldest smile I'd ever seen. She raised her hand, pressed it to the glass. So did I. I don't know why. Maybe I thought she was real. Maybe I just wanted to understand. The second my fingertips touched the mirror, I felt heat, not from outside, from inside the glass. And then, like a punch to the chest, I saw a flood of images, a plantation kitchen, a woman, Chloe, being scolded, humiliated, her ear being cut off. She screamed and I felt it. Then she was baking, stirring something into a cake, watching children eat it with trembling hands. She hadn't meant to kill them, just to make them sick, to win her way back into favor. Then, rope, a tree, a mob. She died swinging, with flies buzzing around her face and blood soaking into the roots below her bare feet. I staggered back from the mirror, nearly knocked over a chair. Robin was still sleeping. The next morning, I found scratches on my chest, 3 of them, thin, precise, like fingernails dragged across my skin. I didn't say anything, but Robin did. She showed me a Polaroid she'd taken that evening before bed, the one of me standing in front of the mirror. "Funny," she said, frowning. "I don't remember anyone else being in the room when I took this." Behind me in the photo, a woman in a green head wrap was standing in the mirror, watching me, smiling. We left that day. Robin thought the photo was a trick of the light. I didn't argue. I kept that photo for years. It was the only proof I had that I hadn't imagined it. But it disappeared sometime in the 90s. Lost in a move, maybe. Or maybe she came back for it. Sometimes I still hear her voice when I'm shaving, whispering just below the scrape of the blade. The mirror fogs up in ways it shouldn't. Sometimes there's a handprint in the steam, too small to be mine. I don't care what anyone says. Chloe's still there, waiting